This is the final section of Adam Grant's book, Hidden Potential. Under the perspective of cultivating character and realizing potential, we've discussed personal growth, the connection between individuals and society, and the reform of the education system. The theme of this video is team culture and collective intelligence. Previously, discussions on business management emphasized systems and discipline, followed by how leaders should behave. Now, management discussions lean towards culture and values. This shift is because modern production activities have become increasingly complex and diverse, especially requiring creativity. Top-down commands and control struggle to cope with such situations. Instead, everyone must actively contribute and adapt. What is the culture of your company, egalitarian or hierarchical? Is it relaxed or tense? What values do you uphold? What do you reward? What do you penalize? Especially values. In recent years, I have keenly felt that the most significant difference between individuals is not intelligence or knowledge but values. Values determine what you want, while abilities only determine how you do it. Abilities serve values. Regardless of the disparity in abilities and knowledge, as long as values align, people can get along well. If values differ, convincing each other becomes nearly impossible. But where do values come from? If we have to be together and align our values, how should we proceed? Grant suggests that organizational psychology believes our fundamental assumptions about the world determine our values, and values, in turn, determine practices. These fundamental assumptions are not ordinary knowledge or awareness, but rather your belief in how the world fundamentally operates, the first principles you adhere to. For example, the psychological concept of primal world beliefs, which is whether you believe the world is fundamentally good or bad, safe or dangerous, interesting or boring, etc. In our previous video, we discussed the differences between education in Finland and the United States. Grant believes that the fundamental assumptions of these two educations are different. The basic assumption of the U.S. education system is that ability is largely innate. Therefore, the values of this education system promote genius, prioritizing resources for those who won the genetic lottery. This is a winner-takes-all culture. The basic assumption of the Finnish education system is that intelligence has various forms, and every child has outstanding potential. Hence, the values of the Finnish education system are fair, providing excellent teachers and personalized growth plans for all children. This is a culture where everyone has opportunities. In simple terms, worldview determines values, and values determine methodology. What should be the basic assumptions and values of an excellent team? Let's first talk about what it should not be. If you are unfamiliar with organizational psychology and asked to form a team, you might think the best team is composed of the highest skilled individuals. However, organizational psychologists have conducted much research and found that it's not the case. For instance, in many workplaces today, each person has their desk and computer, spending most of their time doing their own tasks. Apart from sharing a water dispenser and a boss, there is little horizontal communication. Activities like meetings and peer evaluations are often formal and superficial, with no genuine interest in what colleagues are doing. This fundamentally fails to leverage the team's effectiveness. An experiment was conducted, where participants were organized into teams to compete. The competition included mathematics and word puzzle games, allowing internal discussions and collective submission of answers. Intuitively, you might think that teams composed of math experts would excel in math, and teams of language experts would excel in word games, right? The results were different. The best teams performed exceptionally well in every project. They relied not on the simple aggregation of individual abilities, but on collective intelligence brought about by team chemistry. In contrast, poorly performing teams, despite having members with individual abilities, resembled a chaotic scene where everyone challenged each other. More people caused more chaos, and it was worse than individuals working alone. This might be the most important lesson of organizational psychology. A good team surpasses individual brilliance, while a bad team is worse than the sum of its parts. The difference lies in whether the team has members with pro-social skills and whether there are antisocial members. Antisocial members are those particularly self-centered and narcissistic individuals. In basketball, they play very selfishly, always choosing to shoot regardless of opportunities to assist teammates. Research indicates that if there is one such person in a team, collective intelligence immediately decreases. But how does a good chemical reaction occur? Many companies now understand that organizations need cohesion, hoping everyone gets along harmoniously. They organize icebreakers and team-building activities, usually taking everyone to a tourist destination for 2 days, engaging in quirky games, but the effects are limited. The best way to enhance cohesion is to engage in a battle. Find a genuine, preferably challenging goal that everyone collaborates to achieve, forget self-interest during the battle, and establish collective identity. We also mentioned before that the best teams consist of composite individuals, rather than circle individuals. Composite individuals play different roles and complement each other, while circle individuals are similar but incompatible, making cooperation ineffective and lacking a sense of security. A good team motivates each individual to unleash their potential, and this typically requires a good leader. What makes a good leader, and some intuitive assumptions are also incorrect. For example, a common assumption is that people with strong professional skills should be leaders. Economists examined over 38,000 salespeople and found that the most successful salespeople were most likely to be promoted to managers. However, this is precisely a wrong practice. Under these people's leadership, the team's performance did not genuinely improve. The study found that the most successful leaders are those who are pro-social, inspiring others to excel in sales. Sales skills do not equate to leadership skills. However, the practice of selecting business elites as leaders is so common that a term has been coined to describe this phenomenon. The Peter Principle. This principle states a paradox. You excel at a job, so you get promoted to another job. You excel at that job again, so the organization promotes you again. This cycle continues until you are promoted to a position you are not good at. The Peter Principle makes everyone do a job they are not good at. To avoid this paradox, a reasonable approach is to have outsiders lead insiders, treating management as a specialized skill. Let the best leaders lead, and let business elites continue their work. Of course, the premise is that you must allow business elites to earn higher wages than leaders, similar to how the salaries of athletes are often higher than those of coaches. So, what kind of person is best suited to be a leader? Here is another common misconception. Extroverted people make the best leaders. In reality, extroverted individuals are more likely to become leaders. I once read about an experiment where groups of 4 participants were discussing something, and the person who spoke first during the discussion would often be elected as the leader. Extroverts are good at speaking, taking control in both large and small gatherings, making them seem like ideal leaders. Research even found that in a relatively introverted culture like China, extroverted individuals are more likely to become leaders. However, Grant argues that many selfish, arrogant individuals with poor pro-social skills are also extroverted and easily become leaders. This is precisely harmful to organizations. Research indicates that extroverted leaders only have an advantage when team members are relatively passive, waiting for orders. If the team consists of proactive elite individuals, everyone absorbing information without waiting for commands, and everyone fiercely competitive, then an introverted leader is the most suitable. Introverts are good listeners. Grant says, for a team made up of sponges, the best leaders are not the ones who speak the most but the ones who listen the best. In summary, the fundamental assumption of an excellent team can be summarized with Grant's statement. The best team is not the one with the best thinkers, but the one that can discover and utilize everyone's best thinking. The values of such a team must be openness, freedom, and equality. There are many specific methodologies, such as Daniel Kahneman's concept of decision hygiene in the book Noise, which is a crucial guarantee for teams to unleash collective intelligence. Grant also suggests a recommendation here. To avoid people being reluctant to express their opinions due to the conformity bias during meetings, he proposes changing brainstorming to brainwriting. This means each person independently writes down their ideas, and then, anonymously, all ideas are presented to the entire group for collective evaluation. These methods are designed to ensure that the best ideas emerge regardless of whose ideas they are. When we talk about equality, you might be wary. In Luke Burgis' book, Wanting, he mentions that any organization needs a hierarchical structure to maintain order. Absolute equality leads to absolute chaos. So, how can we achieve both equality in ideas and hierarchy in organizations? Grant recounts a real story in his book, The 2010 Copiapo mining accident in Chile. At that time, a mine collapsed, trapping 33 workers underground at a depth of 700 meters for over 2 months. They were eventually rescued through international cooperation. This story has many thought-provoking aspects, such as the Chilean government not fearing losing face, actively seeking help from the international community, and the project's overall leader being an introverted leader, who fully respected the opinions of various experts. The most interesting point in the story, in my opinion, is about the crucial engineering method for the rescue operation, which came not from a senior academic or chief expert, but from a 24-year-old young engineer. Initially, this person was not prominent, and in such a large team, his suggestion, which seemed particularly unusual, was immediately rejected by his direct supervisor. However, this suggestion was ultimately adopted, and, in the middle of the project, he came up with a creative second step, succeeding once again. Under a strict hierarchical system, this is almost impossible. How did it happen? Grant says that most organizations follow a ladder system, where each person is responsible for their immediate superior. If you have a problem, you report it directly to your immediate supervisor, and reporting up the chain of command is strictly prohibited. However, in the Chilean rescue operation, they adopted a grid system. You still had to report to your superiors, but if your immediate supervisor rejected your proposal, and you still believed you were right, you could seek other leaders. Just this simple change. This might be because the tasks of the rescue operation were so difficult that collective wisdom had to be mobilized. Otherwise, with confident leaders, subordinates would never have the chance to speak up a second time. Typically, leaders do not like voices that do not align with their own cognition. We have heard the fable of killing the messenger, which suggests that speaking words leaders don't like might endanger your personal safety. However, Grant says, weak leaders suppress voices, kill messengers. Strong leaders welcome voices, thank messengers. Great leaders build systems, amplify voices, and elevate the messenger's status. So, think about what true confidence is. And with that, we have completed the book, Hidden Potential. The main theme of the entire book can be summarized with the following statement by Grant. If talent determines people's starting point, then the character learned afterwards determines how far they can go. This holds true for individuals and teams.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.